From the estate agent, I was looking for a firm that had a broad network to market the property. Martin Gerrard ticked the box. Greg was very positive in the way he persuaded me that they would be the right agent on that basis. Obviously, I wanted to get as near the asking price as possible. The general range of pricing that I received from various agents was quite similar, but it just seemed that the network for Martin Gerrard and the way Greg sold the opportunity for his agency impressed me most. I think that speaking to Greg about the prospect of selling, he sort of did have a big awareness and you know, a lot of data around people looking in the area. And that was what impressed me as well in terms of going with him as a preferred choice. With regards to the marketing overall, we actually did almost an off-market deal. And that again comes down to the data and knowledge that Greg had of people looking in the area. So yes, they produced all the details and they worked lovely, a little bit of toing and froing on the exact message. And from that point of view, that was fine, but ultimately it wasn't really used because of the way the transaction worked. So I agreed a fixed fee with Martin Gerrard, with Greg on this transaction. And, you know, to me, it was good value and, you know, it's well worth the money spent, I think, for getting the right price. I wouldn't go with a web agent who charges virtually nothing. I don't think that you're going to get the best value out of that. There was huge value add by Greg in terms of the way the deal transacted because the buyer didn't have their property on the market. They were selling a flat in Kentish Town. And Greg used his network to contact the local office there to put it on the market quickly in order to get the whole transaction moving. So the chain was only 2 properties, which was great. But the fact that Greg promoted the flat that they were selling through the Kentish Town agency also helped massively in doing this transaction. So that's very impressive. From my perspective, having the support network within the branch, where you get feedback during the whole transaction process, David Mitchell, who is works there with Greg, was very helpful in terms of keeping me informed of issues as they arose. There was an issue with the lease plan on the flat selling in Kentish Town, which delayed the deal because the solicitor thought he could get it through quickly without redoing the plan. That didn't turn out to be the case, but David told me what the issue was and that there would be a delay. And then that gives you confidence that actually this isn't falling apart. You know, through the transactional process that the deal is still on track. There was a delay because, as I said, the solicitor thought he could do a lease plan, whereas he couldn't because the lender wouldn't accept that and they wanted a new lease plan. So that took time. And just knowing those sorts of things are going on in the background and not people being nervous about continuing on the transaction, particularly at a time when you've got interest rates rising and things like that, it's good to be kept informed along that process. And David and Greg were good at that. Well, one of the main benefits of working with Martin Gerrard is their branch network. I think they've got about 10 offices around North London. And generally, a lot of people move within areas. They may move a few miles, but they'll look at location and transport, schools, that sort of thing, particularly selling a family home. So I had no hesitation in looking at that, and they really did use it spectacularly well in this case, particularly with the way that, as I said, in the transaction, the buyer hadn't put their property on the market. It was in Kentish Town. They contacted their Kentish Town office to say, get onto this, guys, which they did very quickly. They secured an offer on that property, which enabled the buyer to then go ahead and purchase my property. So you can't say better than that. I've agreed to do this testimonial because I've been very happy with the way the transaction evolved through Martin Gerrard, and particularly with Greg and David in the way they kept me informed, etc. So, I've no qualms in recommending them at all. Yeah, I mean, I'm quite familiar with Martin Gerrard generally, and I have no problem recommending them. I know Warren Price reasonably well, who's an area manager, and I think the whole process and the way they managed the sale, I'd have no problem recommending them. Having that network has really helped.